In this video, we're going to review the solution for project 10, where you are asked to write 3 different Java methods. So here's the project description. The first 2 steps are just getting your class ready to start writing code. Then we're going to write 3 methods, and then we're going to write a main method that tests our method. When you're writing code, you want to make sure you're testing it as you go. So we'll update our main method, adding calls to our methods as we write those. Okay, so I have created an empty class called methods, and now I'm ready to actually start writing those. Now, whether you put your methods at the top or bottom before or after your main doesn't really matter. I think I'll go ahead and put those at the top just because then as we add more methods, they'll stay close to main and it's easier to see our method when we're trying to call it from inside main. And so to define a method, first of all, we're going to want this to be public and we're going to want it to be static. At this point, we haven't discussed what static really means. It allows you to call a method without instantiating an object of that class. However, since we're just practicing writing methods here, we're not going to be using other classes. But since the main method is static, any methods it calls have to be static. So we have to put that keyword here. We will cover what static means later on, but for now, just put it on the methods you're using in these modules. But for now, don't get too hung up on it. Just put static on your methods. We'll discuss when we get to classes when you would or would not want to make a method static. So there's not going to be a return from this function, so we're going to say void for our return type. The name of the method is banner, and we're going to pass in a string, and we'll call the string str. So this is supposed to add 10 equal signs, followed by the string, followed by 10 more equal signs. So we'll say system.out.println, and then we'll create a string of 10 equal signs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus the string, plus, and then we'll copy and paste another 10 equal signs. And I think I just have 9 there, so I'll add 1. Not a big deal, but I want to make sure that I do it correctly. So it looks like we're going to use this method a couple times in our main method. So the first, we're going to call it with the string pentagonal numbers. Then we're going to call it again, saying repeat strings. And it looks like that's all we need to do for the test cases. And again, I'm using the test cases that were specified in the project. As you're writing code, you're going to want to use your own test cases and think of other ways to test it, but this will suit our purposes. So let's run this, and you can see we get the 2 things printed. So our next method is going to return a value. It's still going to be public static, but it's going to return a number. Now, since I am going to return 3n squared minus n divided by 2, that could be a real number. It's not necessarily an integer. So I'll return a double, and the name is pentagonal. And then I'll take an integer as a parameter. And then I'm going to want to return the result of that calculation. Now I could set up some variables and then return the result of that variable. However, since this is a value and I'm returning a double, I can return the result of the calculation, which is 3 times n times n, so that's n squared. And I could call the exponent function or something here, but for squared it's easier just to type n times n. And then I'm going to subtract n from that, and then all of this will be divided by 2. So that should give me the result I'm looking for. And then for our test here, the test we're asked to do is to print the first 10 pentagonal numbers on the single line. So let's start at 1, and we'll go up to 10. So I'm going to start at 1, less than or equal to 10, incrementing each time. And it doesn't give me anything else to write, so I'm just going to print the result of that pentagonal number. And it says on a single line, so I'm going to add a space in between them. And instead of print line, I'm going to print. Then I'm going to print the 11th through the 20th numbers on individual lines. So let's run this. So 3 times 1 minus 1 divided by 2 is 1. Yeah, so it looks like as we go forth, these numbers are correct. Okay, so then for our last method, we're writing repeat print that takes a string and an integer and prints the string some number of times. So we'll say repeat print, and then it's going to take a string s and an int n. It does say to print it on the same line. So we'll have a for loop that's going to execute n times, and this should actually be void because I'm not going to return anything. And we're going to print, not print line because it says to do it all on one line, s. And to make this a little nicer looking, we'll print a space in between the words. And we'll add a print line at the end just to clean it up a little bit. So let's add some test code to our main method, and that should be repeat EAT. So now we're going to print the word project 5 times. So we will repeat print project 5 times, and then we'll repeat print CSC110 10 times. So let's run this, and you can see our result. Okay, so I think these all look good, and I think that's good output. So let's double check what we're supposed to have. We have a banner for pentagonal numbers, first 10 of those numbers, then the next 10, then a banner saying repeat strings, and then those projects there. So I think this looks good. Just a couple general comments about writing methods. Note that I don't have a lot of extra stuff. The methods just do what they want, what they're asked to be done. I'm not taking user input. I'm not printing extra stuff other than what the method is supposed to be printing out. So we're trying to keep our methods as simple as possible. They should just do one thing, do it well. That makes them easier to test. It makes them easier to use in conjunction with each other. So that is my solution for Project 10.